So I will share my screen. I'll be flipping back and forth. First start with the rowers view of things. So let me share. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on my PC right now. There are apps in both the iOS and Android store for iCrew. So you're gonna see mostly the PC view of things, a large screen. Also, let me know if it gets too noisy. I have my door open in the office, so if it gets noisy.
Totally fine.
Okay, great. I will show you kind of a mobile view of the world too, just kind of simulating a smaller screen. But I'm just going to go ahead and sign on as an athlete in a club. This is a fictitious club I have set up in iCrew.
Perfect.
And I can give you the credentials for this club. So if you want to play around under this fake club called ABR, you're welcome to do that. So this is just logging in on the PC. The first thing we see is today's lineup. Kind of a mocked up phone view would be something like this, where today's lineup is shown, and there's a drop down menu here to get to the other functions. So that's just to kind of show off the pseudo mobile view of things. But let me just switch back to the PC view. So on this page, if the scenario is it's the day of a session and coaches have already put lineups together and they've made those lineups public, when the athlete signs on, that's going to be the first thing they see. So Anne sees she's stroke seat for this 4. She knows the boat and oars, who's coxing, and the other 3 ladies in the boat. Session plan can be entered by the coach. So specifically for this day, here's some land warm up and information what they're going to be doing on the water. Looks like I'm going to do 10 2-minute pieces. Anne can leave notes to the coach right here if she's perhaps is running late. That's a quick way to just put in a note. These notes, the coaches get notified by email when they come in, so you can make sure you stay up to date on specific notes. That note for this session is one of many ways that communication channels in iCrew. I'll show many other options on how people communicate, but that's just kind of one very session specific. So that's the today's page. Again, the coach has to have done lineups ahead of time and made them public. That's 2 separate things. A coach can keep lineups private while they're working on them. Maybe not so important on a daily practice session, but think about you putting regatta lineups together and not sharing those until you're ready to share them. You can be working on those lineups and keep them private until you're ready to go.
Awesome.
So my attendance plans, this is where athletes indicate which sessions they plan on attending. Most crews, if you're in the club and you're on a team, it's expected you're going to be at every practice. So folks really don't have to come to this page and do anything unless they can't make a particular practice. So here, Anne is toggled in to attending all these sessions, but this home workout on Wednesday, the 6th of May, she is toggled out. iCrew also, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, I just recently enhanced iCrew to allow a coach to set limits on attendees for a session. So scenario is the boathouse is open, but to limited numbers. You could set the limit of 12 as it's indicated here. And looks like it's full up, so she can't toggle in. There is going to be an option here for her to get notified by email if a slot opens up. So just keep in mind you can set limits. And someday, hopefully, that won't be needed when we can all get back to normal. So that's pretty much it on this screen, just toggling in and out. You can click these links here to get more information about the session. And if there were regattas on the calendar, I'll show you regattas later, but the regattas show up in a separate list up here that they can expose and toggle into a regatta. So my dates away, this is just where somebody might put in a set of dates they're going to be away from the boathouse, and that way they don't have to toggle out of those sessions. Any dates that they've set as away, perhaps a family vacation, they will not even see the sessions on those dates appearing on their list. So most useful if they're going to be gone more than a few days. The system has a notion of a journal entry. This is where athletes, totally optional, but they can log in daily, journal entries, put some notes in about how the practice session went that day. Recently added the ability to import their Concept 2 logbook here. So the best part about this, I think, is really that they can expose their logbook entries, perhaps some home workouts to the coaches. So all this, each time they write a journal entry, I'll show you just real quick, writing a brand new journal entry, they can decide whether this journal entry is completely private, visible to coaches, or visible to everybody. Also has a mechanism for tracking volunteer hours, which I don't think is an issue for you guys, but this is what a journal entry looks like. These questions here, how well you were prepared, how did you perform, how did you recover? You can change those questions to be whatever might be appropriate for Capital Crew. So let's just say she put in a few things here. Good workout. She can capture her EEC meters, road and time, average stroke rate, and then it's associated with today's practice. So she just saves that journal entry. Test results, so ergometer tests. iCrew is set up to let you enter all that data. What we're seeing here are her personal records showing up at the top with some abilities to check in on a graph on her results. These are all the tests she's taken for the 2K. And again, PRs are at the top. And if you go down though, you can see all of her test results over time.
Cool.
And of course, erg test can be for distance or time. Coach sets that up ahead of time, and you have the option to allow athletes to enter their own results. So they could get off the erg, catch their breath, and enter it into iCrew immediately. You can also just limit the test results entry to the coaches. Document tracking. The best example of this is perhaps you have a code of conduct that athletes need to read and sign. So here's a code of conduct that she's supposed to read and just provide this e-signature, which is really just her typing her name. Click sign, and that code of conduct is marked as on file and in the system. Other documents, you can imagine any kind of form that maybe needs to be printed and handed in, that can be done, and an administrator can track that forms are handed in. But something that just requires reading and signing, you can create a PDF of that document and put it into iCrew. As we're going to, please interrupt with questions, but we'll chat more after this. Payments, if you want to track payments for the crew in iCrew, iCrew interfaces with PayPal. So a club treasurer can set up PayPal buttons, and members can initiate payments from iCrew, and they get into PayPal, do all their thing, and come back, and we can track the payments are being made. The My Teams tab just shows the teams that Anne is on currently. She's on the juniors all and the varsity girls, shows the coaches and their email address. It might be appropriate, there's other optional teams that she could pop over to, and any team that allows people to just join and leave at will have a button over here that says join or leave. And then the very last tab here is my profile. This is her personal profile. There are many fields on this form, most of which are optional. This is not a system that requires you to fill in all this data. The minimal amount of data we need for an athlete is first name, last name, and their email address. Also, we do calculate weight-adjusted erg scores, so you can require weight to be entered, and that's only visible to coaches and the athlete. You can also turn that option off if you just don't want to deal with requiring weight. You can turn that off. So the only other thing too is emergency contact information, but you can see things like port starboard preference can be set. Event preferences for a regatta, that can also be set. So that's the athlete's profile. And they fill that out when they register their account in iCrew. So the typical flow is that you get iCrew set up for your club, you create the teams, and then you ask people to register, and they come in and make their own account, set up their own user ID and password, and then fill in this as much as this profile as you'd like them to fill in. That's the main bulk of the athlete's view of things. They also have access across here to looking at the today page. This is just access to all the other sessions happening today for the other teams. They can see other lineups. They can see all lineups for today. There's a club homepage with some access to some other things that aren't as of primary interest to them. Here's the session calendar. This is just a calendar of all the sessions for all the different squads or teams. And then messages, they can have access to messages that have been sent to them in iCrew. And we'll talk more about messages when I show you the coaches and administrators view. And then discussions, these are like an onboard online message board. So imagine somebody just wants to start a discussion on a certain topic. They can do that all online. That doesn't involve emails going back and forth, and people can respond to discussions. Folks can also, in the discussions as a club, you specify any number of channels, which are typically like subject matter. So you can see the channels here: miscellaneous banter, masters general, important announcements. Each individual member can subscribe or follow the channels of interest and mark a box to get email notifications whenever there's activity on those channels. So that's another way of communications enhanced with iCrew. So that's kind of the key functionality for an athlete's point of view. Any questions on that?
I think so.
No.
Okay.
That was pretty in depth. That was good.
Yeah. Let me show you now the more of a coach's administrator view. So each club, you can specify as many club administrators or crew administrators as you want. That's people that are basically going to have superpower in the system.
Okay.
So most clubs don't specify all but like 4 or 5 administrators, but you can specify as many as you want. Coaches get specified as a coach for specific teams, and the teams that they're specified as coach for, they have rights to do everything they need to do for that team. So I'm going to log on as an administrator for ABR, and we're going to now step through the administrator's view. So totally different user interface because it's got exposure to tons of functionality in the system. And I'll try to focus more on the things that a junior rowing club would be interested in. At the highest level is this club tab with functionality here. We're not going to go through all these buttons. There's just tons of things we could talk about, but I want to just focus on the main things. But just know that each club has a profile, and the profile is really just where the club information is maintained, who the administrators are for the club. That can be changed here. Just kind of some various questions here for the for those journal entries. Here's where you specify those questions, so on and so forth.
Cool.
So that's just the club profile. Clubs, of course, are broken into teams or squads. You can take a look at the team list we have in this fake club. So all the teams are here. This page gives you access to edit any individual team profile, like the Masters LTR profile. Every team has this set of fields available, and you can specify your coaches for the team here. And you have access to the team roster over here. So if we wanted to take a look at let's take a look at the varsity girls. Folks can upload a profile picture if they'd like, but this is the complete roster in a kind of a tiles or cards view, and you can just drop that into a list view if you'd like.
It'd be really nice getting to know the new athletes' faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, our coaches in the Masters group, I row with Mount Baker Masters in Seattle, and our coaches basically said, all Masters, go put a profile picture, because we get new coaches wandering in, and it's just a great way to learn who the people are.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, so that's the team's main thing. The whole idea here is you create as many teams as you want. And each team has a profile, so a set of fields, and then folks are put on the team, and they can be put on as many teams as you need. A good example for juniors is there's going to be varsity boys and girls, novice boys and girls, and then there might be a catch-all team just called juniors all, so that if you need to send a message to all juniors, you have easy, quick access to that entire roster.
That's awesome.
And then the members tab, this just gives you access to individual members. Probably not used all that much. There are some things you can do for members here, but the club roster, which we'll talk about in accessible up here, that's probably the quickest way to kind of find a particular athlete and do some stuff with them. But just know the members tab is there. And then sessions, this is just where you create sessions for a squad. So let me step you through, this is kind of an important piece of the system. So I'm going to step you through creating sessions for a particular squad. Let me check my session calendar really quick to see what's out there so I don't set up or put some duplicates. Okay, June is pretty wide open. I'm going to create a bunch of sessions for the varsity girls in June. So here on the sessions tab, I'm going to pick my varsity girls and I'm going to create new session. But because they get together multiple days a week at the same time and day, I'm going to create sessions in bulk, not just one session, but lots of them at one time. So the session title is just going to be practice. We're going to start from June 1st, and let's just create it for out to July 31st. So there's my date range of sessions I'm about to create. Let's say we get together at 3:15 p.m. every day till 5:15. And that happens Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Here's where if I needed to set an attendee limit, we could do that. But for now, I'm going to leave that off. All the sessions will start off with the lineups being private, so you have to make them public explicitly when you're done. And that's pretty much it to create them. Now here it's showing you what it's about to do. It's about to create all these sessions based on the date range, time of day and month, or time of day and the days of the week. So I'm just going to click create sessions. And iCrew goes out and generates individual sessions for every day in that range for that for those days and the time. And then it updates the calendar. So now if I pop out into June, I'll see all my individual sessions for the varsity girls, all these pink tiles. These tile colors are set on the team profile. So now that you've created those in bulk, if you want to go into a specific session, you can bring up any specific session, put in the workout plan, and do lineups for that session. We'll get to lineups in a bit, but let me just kind of quickly walk through the rest of this. So we talked about documents. This is just where you'd create a new document and do member tracking. Same thing with fees and payments. Here's where you'd create a brand new test. So you just say new test, give it a name, the date that test is going to be held on, and then specify whether it's a meters or minutes length. You can set a split interval and then just click save, and you'll have a new test out there. Your shell and oars inventory is all kept in iCrew. Here, all the shells from singles all the way up to the eights. Each shell has a specific profile. So if I look at the Beast, we see it's an 8-seat sweep boat. The current configuration is port stroked, port starboard. If you happen to have a bucket rigging in there somewhere, you can specify that, and you'll see where that comes in very handy when you're doing lineups. It's specified as a novice boat, has a coxswain seat, and then lots of, again, optional fields to just maintain information about your entire inventory of boats.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for oars. You can have your complete inventory of oars in the system. Similarly, each set of oars has a profile. What are the type? How many do you have on hand? And then you can see a lot of other information that you can put in. Again, all optional. You can put your launches in here, and you can assign launches to specific sessions. That, again, optional. And then other assets is just kind of a catch-all if you've got other assets you want to track, like if you want to put all your ergometers in here, dates purchased, all that sort of thing, you can have all your ergometers in here with this information captured. Most of the data you see being captured into iCrew, of course, is going into a backend database. Many screens that you come into, you'll see export or download options. So you can actually pull data out of iCrew and into Excel. A good use case there is like your erg test results. Maybe you want to pull the data into Excel and do some more interesting analysis of test results.
Sweet.
Here's your discussions tab. This is where you set up your channels for the club. And a given channel can be specified to be for a specific team. So if you're not a member of the Novice Girls team, you're not going to see or have access to this Novice Girls channel. If you don't want to limit it to a specific team, you just leave that field blank. And you can see here all the people currently following and getting email notifications for this channel. So again, the channel, this is related to the discussions tab over here. Events, these are meant to be events. These are non-rowing events. So imagine you schedule a boathouse cleanup or perhaps a potluck for the whole club. You can create an event. It shows up on the calendar and people can indicate whether they're going to attend that event or not. And then the locations list is just where your club comes together to row. So primarily the boathouse is going to be in here. We captured the GPS coordinates, and we'll talk about that when I talk about session check-in. But this list can be created and added to by you. If there's a particular river or lake that you go to for many of your regattas, you can put that in as a location. That way, when you create the session for that regatta, you can say, hey, it's at Vancouver Lake up in Washington or on the river in Sacramento. All right, so you saw as I stepped through here, tons of functionality in the system. Now, dashboards is a way to just get somebody to really focus on the main things they want to do in iCrew. And to show off dashboards, I'm going to quickly log in as myself and show you a dashboard I created for the comp team coach in our club. So here is a dashboard for the comp team. And what this is just a collection of tiles that take me to pages specifically for the comp team and that I, as the comp team coach, are most interested in. So sure, I can go to this homepage and get access to all the stuff, but on a daily basis, I'm the comp team coach. This is what I'm most responsible for and interested in. So any coach or administrator can create any dashboard, a brand new dashboard, and put a link to the page on that dashboard. And then you can maintain the dashboard, add new tiles, change the tile names. You can even show the dashboard right after logging into iCrew. So again, if you don't want to land here as a coach, but you rather land here, you just specify this, show this dashboard after logging in. So creating a dashboard is really easy. Let's just pretend we've found a page that you want to put on an existing dashboard. I'm just going to go to this page, Varsity Boys team member profiles. So scenario is I'm building a new dashboard. This is a page I want a tile to be linked to. So I click this yellow star up here and it says add page to dashboard. I'm like, yes, that's what I want to do. The page tile name is going to be team member profiles. That got picked up automatically. I could add it to an existing dashboard or create a brand new dashboard. So let's create a brand new dashboard for Varsity Boys. Click Save. And now if I go back to dashboards, here's my brand new dashboard called Varsity Boys. It's got a single tile on it. Now that that dashboard's created, as I find other tiles, other pages that I want on here, it's a simple matter of clicking Add Page to Dashboard and add it to an existing dashboard and click Save. And you build up your dashboard. So that's really just a way, again, to keep you focused and quick access to the core things you want to do in iCrew and not be bothered with all the other stuff that could kind of be distracting. That's the whole idea behind dashboards. The Today page you saw when I was logged on as an athlete, that just is a quick way to get to individual sessions, the lineups page, and we can talk about the check-in page now. So for the novice girls, let's bring up the check-in page for today's session at 4:15. So when folks toggle into a session, they are indicating they plan to attend. So this is a list of all the varsity girls planning to attend the session this afternoon. Now, if I uncheck this box, right now I'm hiding absent members. Looks like everybody's attending because no new tiles popped up. But if you had a few people that had toggled out, you would have seen them show up in their tiles. They are different looking. They have red text, just indicates that they don't plan to be there. Mostly you're interested in the people that are going to be there. This page is used to track actual attendance. So for this afternoon, the idea would be this page is accessible from a shared computer at the boathouse, and folks can walk up to it and just tap their tile to indicate they're actually present. But the easier way to do it is tied to those GPS coordinates for the boathouse that we saw earlier on the location. That enables athletes to simply show up at the boathouse, launch their phone app of iCrew, and get automatically checked in. And the reason we, of course, need GPS coordinates is we want to know they're actually at the boathouse. So again, the key thing here is you've got indication of who planned to be here, but who actually showed up. The best way to kind of explain how useful this is, I'll take you into the world of masters rowing at Mount Baker. Our coach asks us, first of all, I'm on the morning squad, so we show up at 5:30 in the morning. Coach says, by 8 p.m. the night before, please toggle out if you're not going to make it. And everybody does pretty good with that. Just after 8 p.m., he goes in and starts doing lineups for our teams. And he will actually finish them and make them public the night before. So what happens though, of course, in the morning, somebody maybe wakes up with a sore throat or not feeling well, or simply does not show up. The check-in page, he's actually in the office while we're all coming into the erg room and doing a little warm-up. He's in the office looking at the lineups page and seeing who's toggling in and actually showing up. So 5 minutes after, let's say 5:35, we're all supposed to be there 5:30. 5:35, he says, okay, these no-shows are no-shows. I'm going to tweak the lineups and let's get on the water. And literally, we've gone from wasting a good 20 minutes every morning to getting on the water within, like, hands-on. I'm serious. I don't get even on the erg anymore. I do some kind of calisthenics to warm up, get some stretching in, but pulling an erg down and doing any sort of thing, we're just hitting the water way too fast. And that's because we know who's going to be there. Lineups are getting done ahead of time. We know who's actually arrived, and it just helps us spend less time on land and more time on the water. So that's the whole idea behind the check-in page. Now let's take a look at lineups, because the lineups page is another place a coach is going to spend a lot of time. So if I'm on the Today page and I go to the lineups for the varsity girls right here, notice the little red man icon. That just means they're still private, so you haven't released them to be accessible to your team. This is the lineups page. It's going to show all of your shells and your oars. Notice this shell is showed up in a black with red text. iCrew lets you track boat damages in the system, and if a boat damage is logged and it's major damage, this is what you see. This is basically telling a coach, do not use this boat, it's unrollable. But in general, all these boats are shown here. You can collapse these sections just to give you more room in the screen. But to do a lineup, you can see down below is the actual grid of lineup. So let's grab a boat and do a lineup for a 4. So here's the Lopez 150 weight category. I'll pull in some oars. And now if we go down here, the bullpen of athletes are shown. And you can sort and list these athletes in multiple different ways. This has happened to be sorted by gender and name. Notice Hannah Actually, she's a bad example. Here's Kiona with the red on her tile. She's a port preference rower. If I happen to drop her in a starboard seat, iCrew kind of tells you that may be an issue for Kiona. The yellow background, and tells you might as well put her in a starboard seat. So you can just tap a tile and pull them in. Notice the tile decorations, these pound signs and dollar signs and different coloring. That's totally optional. If you have some things you want to do for designating your athletes, perhaps they're first year varsity. You can specify all the first year varsity to have this turquoise blue on their profile. So totally optional. Most tiles will just show up like this. Here's Alexa with her port preference. Here's some dedicated coxswains. They have the C on the tile. So I'll put Rasa in the coxswain seat. Yeah, that's the lineups page. Let me just clear those lineups and pop back into my fictitious org. And we'll go to the varsity girls lineups for my fictitious org. And you can see some lineups are done here. One lineup with Anne in the coxswain seat. Remember I mentioned how you can specify the rigging of the boat. Here's a boat, the Cascadia 4 currently has bucket rigging here in seats 2 and 3. So you see red, green, green, red. If you keep your rigging information up to date in iCrew, whenever you pull that boat into the lineup, you'll see the current rigging. So let's pull the surprise down. So drag and drop is enabled here if you want, but also even easier is just click the boat once. Here I've clicked the Nevin and just tap where you want it to go. Same thing with oars, same thing with rowers. Just single tap and drop them in.
And then the age part. So for masters, it'll calculate the average age.
Yeah, on the fly, you're seeing age errors because this is a fake org, but typically in the masters group, if everybody puts their birth year on their profile, yeah, iCrew automatically calculates average age for you. Most useful, of course, for a regatta, but you might do a practice session and say, hey, that 4 was really good. Oh, hey, they're an E age category. Great to know. So
Awesome.
also the average weight is calculated. Again, if you have your athletes put in their weight, just to check if the average weight is good for the boat you've pulled in, that's useful information. Notice too, these pop-ups are happening over here when I click on a tile. You can disable the pop-up if you don't want to see it, but generally as you click a tile, you can see information about that athlete. You can close that if you want. At the bottom of the page, actually I should have asked, you guys involved with the Capital Crew Masters at all, or are you just juniors?
Yeah, that's we are not, but our rowing manager is the master's coach also. That's why I was asking, because I know she would like that.
Yeah, so one of the things she might really like, and I know we rely on this heavily in our master's group, we don't have dedicated coxswains. Actually, we have one, a Yale grad, 60-something guy who comes to all our practices, coxes us all the time. One guy out of a master's team of 100 people. So of course we get to rotate through the coxswain seat. Well, iCrew keeps track of people and last time they coxed. So the people at the top of the list are basically the ones that ought to cox this session.
Cool.
So
I said Marin.
sorry, I missed that.
I coached the Masters women at Marin, and that would have been so nice because we had the same issue where it was like rotating and then people would get upset that it was their day.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, iCrew just keeps everybody honest. And the notes from the athletes are also shown here. Here's a quick way to message everybody that's associated with this session. We'll talk more about messaging, but in general, that's the lineups page. I'll talk about regatta lineups too, but it's generally the same, but there's a few differences we'll step through. Yeah, any questions about lineups?
That's awesome.
Okay, great. So let's talk about the club roster. I mentioned it's a really great way to quickly get to any particular individual's profile or record in the system. So it pops up here, and sure, this is a huge list of 151 athletes, but this search field is just super valuable to find somebody very quickly. So if I put in Aston, here's James Aston's record. I could have also put in James and seen all the James show up. So any data you see here that's being displayed, you can just put in the search field to quickly find somebody. So once you've found them, you can get to their profile right here, and administrators can update athlete's profile. So that's just a great way to quickly get to any particular record. You can archive members out of the system. Their account doesn't get deleted, but they're kind of off your radar. And this is meant for people that leave the club. If they come back later, you can unarchive them. So that's the club roster. Let's talk about sending a message. So I had mentioned there's lots of things iCrew does to help enhance communication. Sending email messages is, of course, going to be one of the primary things that will really help. And this will look like a typical place you compose an email. You've got a to-line, a CC line, and a BCC line, and a subject line, and then the message itself. So the biggest advantage, of course, is if you click the, let's say I like using BCC, so reply alls don't cause inbox mess ups. Let's just click BCC. You've got access to all your team rosters. So if you need to message all the juniors, select all, click OK, you're ready to send a message to everybody on the juniors all. And of course, you can go back and select multiple teams, maybe juniors all and the junior parents. You can do that too. Put in a subject and put in the body of the message. And you can do some simple formatting here. So if you wanted that word bold to be bold, you can do stuff like that. You can paste in links to other pages in here. Yeah, so that's the basic way to use the send message page. Again, the key features is when you go to click to CC or BCC, you're gonna have access to all your teams. There is an option here to compose and send the message from your own email app. This just pulls all the email addresses out of here and opens up your email client on your system and lets you send from your own email client. The main advantage here would be that you can attach a file perhaps to an email message, but you can also upload files into iCrew and include a link to the files here in the body of the message. So there's, you know, without actually physically attaching it, you still can provide access to a file if you need to do that. So yeah, you click send message and that gets fired off as an email to folks. Any questions about sending messages?
No.
So another thing just to help you focus in on who you might want to email, let's say the varsity girls, here's their session for today. I showed you the check-in page and the lineups page. This gets you back just to the profile for today's sessions. Today's session where the workout plan can be entered. You can see other stuff here. He currently has 27 people attending. So let's say this varsity girls squad is 35 people. Today's session involves just 27. Well, from here, you can just message the people that are attending this session and leave off the young ladies that are not coming to today's session. So sending a message to those attending, I'm going to use the BCC line, click compose and send message. Now I'm on my send message page, but a bunch of stuff's been pre-filled for me. So here I'm quickly sending information about today's sessions and the whole workout we have planned. And it has a link to the session at the bottom if they want to do that. So just a quick way to get a message out to all people attending this particular session. Discussions, we kind of perused past this a bit, but basically the discussion, if I wanted to start a brand new discussion, any member of the club could come in here, say new discussion, select their channel, novice girls channel, need. Click post, and that gets posted out to that team channel. And now everybody that's following this channel and has marked that they'd like email notifications when activity happens, they would have been sent an email to let them know that that channel is out there. All right, one last thing, I do want to show regatta lineups, just because they are kind of a special beast. It's very sad on our calendar here in Seattle. We were supposed to have opening day this Saturday. It's a huge, was going to be the 100th year for opening day.
Oh.
And we had a men's 8 in it, but not this year. So let me pop over and find a regatta. Here's a regatta for the Masters. This is good enough for just kind of showing off. So it looks like any other session, but it's been flagged as a regatta. So notice this toggle is turned on. This is a regatta plan. And I've put in a name of the regatta, and iCrew can search Regatta Central and see if it finds a match based on name. And in this case, it did find a match, and it pulled back and is showing all the events for the regatta here in iCrew with links to the other entries for every event. And if it was after the regatta, the results link might be useful. The start time and date, if the data is accurate in Regatta Central, you'll see that here. So just a quick way to see the event list without having to pop over to Regatta Central. So here's a men's D4X event. Remember event 30. We'll take you into the lineups now for a regatta. So very much like a regular practice session, but a couple things are different. For one thing, you can use the same boat multiple times. So here's the Mount Baker 8+ used multiple times. And this event info row has been added because I can tap here, put in event 30, and iCrew talks to Regatta Central and pulls back that it's the men's D4X. Of course, I probably want a 4 sculling boat in here, and then I could fill in my roster for that event. And of course, if you can use a boat twice, that means rowers can be used twice. So here's Terry in this event 5, and also plan to be in this boat over here. Maybe that's event 32. So athletes can be dropped in boats in multiple events. So that's the main difference between a regatta lineup versus a regular practice session. Event information and using boats and people multiple times. When you do have a regatta set up in iCrew, you can get cool things like a trailer loading manifest. So this is just simply a list of all the boats and oars that you've pulled into lineups for that. So you can use this to make sure you've loaded the trailer with all the equipment you need for that regatta. And a regatta information page gets generated. So if you need to share information about the regatta with your athletes, you can fill in all this information. General notes, when to arrive, do we need volunteers, what's the parking like, is there food available, when's the trailer getting loaded. You can even upload a diagram of how the trailer needs to be loaded. When's it going to be unloaded? This is useful for our boathouse. Perhaps the juniors are going to load on Friday during their practice, and masters are unloading on Sunday after the regatta. You can put that kind of information here, and everybody knows what's going on with trailer loading and unloading.
That's cool.
All right. I think I have hit on the main points of iCrew. Like I said, you can bounce around here and click around and see there's tons of things that are there that we could spend, 2 more hours going through, but I just wanted to touch on the main points. So, questions, comments?
I had a question about the boat repairs. Are athletes allowed to go in And like if they're, I don't know, missing a spacer and couldn't find one, can they like
Yep.
put that in there?
Yep, they can. From the club homepage, they can pop in and go to the repair log
Oh.
and put in a new request.
That
Pick
would
the.
be huge.
Sorry, what was that?
That would be awesome because
Yeah, yeah. Well, it happens all the time. I do have an option. I had one club that says, no, don't let don't let athletes put these in. So there is an option if you wanted to turn that off. But as like we're in a boat all the time, and I find the right foot of four seat, I can't even get my foot in because somebody's tied it up in a knot. Well, when these get logged, you can specify the email address of the person or people to notify automatically to receive a notification. So if you've got somebody in charge of boat repairs, that's their email address that shows on the club profile, and they'll get an email every time one of these gets logged.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Very useful.
Yeah.
And then my only other question with Regatta Central. So I know that like U.S. rowing numbers, they automatically will let you know if you're like not up to date on your waiver or your U.S. rowing number is about to expire. Does iCrew like work with that? Because I saw that you had U.S. rowing number on the roster page.
Yeah, so a recent enhancement to iCrew, recent in 2 months ago, I added the ability for you to export that information off the US rowing page and
Nice.
import it into iCrew. So iCrew will attempt to fill in people's US rowing number if they didn't put it in on their own in the profile, but also you can know who has not signed their waiver and who has not updated their membership. So you can know ahead of time by just periodically, as you're approaching regatta season, perhaps once a week, an administrator pulls that data down from iCrew, from the US rowing site and imports that data.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so import from US rowing, notice I popped over to the documents tab. Here's the import from US rowing. I don't have this fictitious club set up, but basically it would have a document in the system associated with both the membership data and the waiver data. And that's all going to be at your fingertips.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know what our coaches go through when we're approaching a regatta. It's like, you need to sign your waiver.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other thing. So when you were doing the what was it? Like the forms and stuff that they could sign.
Mhm.
It was like the club code of conduct and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I know one of the biggest things for us is like trying to get the parents to sign their travel waiver and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So if we uploaded that, obviously we have a couple of people that are 18, and usually some of the seniors will be like turning 18 that year. Is that something we could have the parents on also, that they could?
Yeah, let's talk about family units in iCrew.
Yeah.
So iCrew has the notion of parents having their own account, and a club like yours, the parents, maybe they're a rower, and maybe the masters use iCrew also.
Yeah.
But in general, what iCrew supports is that you can have a profile in iCrew, and you're not a rower, you're a parent of a junior. And in iCrew, you can specify family units. You can tie multiple records together in what's called a families unit. So to create a family unit, you can say, yeah, Victoria Abbott and Charlie Abbott are the parents, and I don't know, I'll pretend some bogus person is the kid. By selecting these three people and creating a family unit, they are now associated together. So now on these profiles, you specify, Glenn is the child and Charlie and Victoria are the parents. And now when you create a document, you can specify whether that document requires a parent signature also. And if it does, then the parent, when they signs it on into iCrew, they can go sign their kid's document. And then of course, if the kid needs to sign it too, then they sign it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now they have no excuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's helpful when the document is just hey, read this and type in your name to indicate you're agreeing with it.
Yeah.
If it's a form, like I said earlier, if it's a form that does require more information to be filled out, the idea is you can track that those are on file here in iCrew, but generally they're going to print it, fill it out, and hand it in. And the person they hand it into, some club administrator, they'll come in and mark that they've received that document for that person.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. And I can share this Zoom recording too if you want to let people have access to this entire session.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have, let's see, what have I done already for you guys, just in case you want to take off with this. So I do have the ABR club. That's my fake club you've been seeing. I can share credentials as Anne, the rower, and the administrative credentials with you if you want to come in and play around. That's certainly an option. I've also already created an entry for Capital Crew here in the system. So you had a great copy of your club logo in your email attachment.
Yeah.
So I grabbed that. Most of the time for these clubs, I'm scraping things off their website and creating these. But I was like, oh my God, that's a high quality PNG. I'm going to graph it. So what I did already for Capital Crew is I created an account for you, Chris, and
Cool.
set you up as the administrator.
Awesome.
So your user ID is chris.leonard,
Okay.
and I'll email you your temporary password.
Perfect.
So you're already set up as a club admin. I also created teams for you: novice men and women, varsity men and women, and a catch-all all juniors.
Nice.
And I created registration profiles for you. So if you get to the point where you're going to use iCrew and people need to come in and create their own accounts, these registration profiles, basically what they're going to see is they're going to see this page with links to register. And if there's a profile registration process for each of your 4 squads. And what happens here is they generally just click registration, they fill in their information, and we're going to put them on the correct team based on the profile they picked. So here I picked them varsity men. They're going to land on the all juniors and varsity men squads just by picking that profile.
Awesome.
Yeah, so a bit of a head start.
Nice.
Yeah, the typical, I do have a get started page that steps through. So getting started with iCrew, the most important thing is really to just go to this videos page and watch these 5 onboarding videos. So I've already done these first 2 steps for you. Somebody would need to put in all the shells and ores. If you happen to have that data in a simple Excel spreadsheet, I could probably import that data for you. And then you can create sessions like I showed you. We both created all those sessions for June and July, and then get coaches registered in the system and specify them as coaches for their specific teams.
Sweet.
Yep.
It's easy enough.
Yeah, try to make it's, it is a system with lots of features and functionality, but I try to make it as easy as possible to onboard.
That's great.
Great.
That's so cool.
Well, like I said, the recording of this session will be available. I will send you both links. And
Awesome.
Chris, I'll send you your password to get in. You will be required to change it immediately.
Okay.
You'll get an email with a code to change your password, but you can
No worries.
poke around. And if you do want credentials for the fake club, you're welcome to those too.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate you both taking the time to
No,
take
absolutely.
a look at iCrew. So I will say iCrew has been around. I started building it in 2016 when I started rowing, and it's constantly every month there are things getting rolled out and enhancements being made. Many of those enhancements are coming from clubs, whether they're a small club like Clam Island Rowing with 20 members or a large club like Mount Baker with over 400. It's just, I say that to let you know, if you get into the system and there are things that are critical for you guys to make it work for you, we need to talk. Don't just assume, this isn't going to work. Let's talk. I just went through a number of tweaks on boat reservations, which we didn't even talk about because your juniors aren't doing independent rowing. But Pocock Rowing Center here in Seattle, I just stepped through a number of tweaks to the whole reservation system because they got in and started using it, and the way their folks in their sculling team come to the boathouse to go grab a boat and go row, it needed some tweaks on my end to really make that flow for them. So that's just an example of some recent changes I made.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome because I know we ran into issues a couple of times this year where, so I guess on each side, you guys have 2 boats that are exclusive, right? The 2.8s?
Yeah.
And then we have 4 on the men's side. But other than that, everything's shared. So we ran into a couple issues where like the masters thought they were going to have doubles and I had them all out as pairs. So no, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, iCrew will definitely tell you if you've got juniors, varsity men and women coming together at the same time, and the women grabbed a boat and the men try to grab that boat in the lineups, you're gonna be told that the women already have that boat.
Cool.
Yeah. You cannot. One last thing you did remind me of, on the team's profile, you can specify their priority equipment. And that basically means every time I create sessions, these are boats we always use. So put them in a lineup immediately. In other words, make them look like they're being used. So just keep that in mind. You can specify the priority equipment.
Yeah, I like that a lot.